Welcome to Business Influencers. Hope everyone is having a spectacular week. We are so thrilled to have you here as the show continues to grow each and every month. We started back in October of last year, and the show is just really making a lot of difference based upon the feedback that you provide us because of you. We are committed each and every week. We're bringing experts to share their words of wisdom, but most importantly, their experience and their personal connection to help move your personal success in business to the next level. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. They're a new social media community platform dedicated to helping bring alumni together, an opportunity to meet people that you have not seen in quite some time, or perhaps meet new people, maybe people that are in a different generation type than you, but went to your school. This is a great opportunity to develop authentic, genuine relationships free from all the noise of social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, with no social media notifications, giving you the opportunity to come in when it's important to you to develop those relationships. It also offers an affinity program, which allow you to tap into certain types of things that are not available to the general public that could help you in your business if you're a sole proprietor or run a small LLC. Feel free to check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about how building your team can scale your business. So the title again is Building Your Team to Scale Your Business. Now, I can tell you without having a team, taking your business to another level is not where it's going to be. It requires a team effort, whether if people are working directly for you, or these are people that are working with you from a 1099 capacity. The gentleman that we're going to be bringing in that's going to be sharing his words of wisdom and insight is Karl Maier, and he has got a wealth of information that he's going to be sharing with you. Let me give you a little background about Karl and his company, Abunden. So Karl founded Abunden to help companies build their management operating system so that they can double their company within 3 years. In his various roles over the past 3 decades, he has been part of a leadership team in 5 established companies that have at least doubled sales in 2 years. Karl has worked in a wide range of roles, including systems and processes, sales and business development, finance and accounting, as well as mergers and acquisitions. Leveraging his successes, Karl developed the Abunden framework and led the development of the practical management tools in the Abunden Management Toolbox app, which we'll learn a little bit more about later here in the show. The Abunden Management Toolbox allows companies to access the power of the Abunden framework in a more affordable price point. Karl has an MBA and a BA from Rice University in Houston. Now, again, company Abunden, it helps business owners to put in place a management operating system so they can double their sales in the next 3 years. And this works really well with companies anywhere between 7 and 70 people. So ideal for small businesses, and offers a wide variety of different solutions to reduce turnover, build engagement, and create management teams that will double your sales. And without further ado, we welcome Karl to the show. Karl, how are you doing today?
Great, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're excited to learn more about, the whole concept around teams, building a team, teamwork, finding consistent ways and sustainable ways that how a team can help move any type of business, regardless, in this case, size. In this case, we can even focus on smaller businesses, 7 to 70 people, and how they can really, find a strategy that could help them to really address the number one issue that faces companies of this size, and that's scaling their business. And in this case, also finding a way to make it sustainable. What can we talk about teamwork in general, where it is, where it could be for organizations in this niche?
Well, we find that, there's kind of several pieces that go together to, make it all work. So you can do that doubling, you can grow your company up to the next level. One of the most basic things, and I'm telling anybody anything terribly new here, but we have to get everybody on the same page. We all have to know where we're going. It's a really basic concept, but, time after time, we see companies that, the CEO's got, one vision of where they're going, and they really haven't communicated it to everybody else. And man, that can cause problems.
So what would you say, based upon what we've been taught in terms of developing a team, what are some of the things that work but are not working, and what could be better?
When you're developing a team, you've got to have communication. People have to understand where they fit into the organization. we have to be able to make decisions. That sounds so easy, but, gathering the, good information, not perfect information, but good information so that you can make a decision, takes work. It takes discipline. You've kind of build those habits, build that communication. So it's habits between multiple people. It's not just one person's habits. So you've got to bring that all together in order to, make good decisions, move the company forward. So.
Absolutely. Totally agree. When we look at, you developed a concept here with Abunden, and can you talk about like, what were some of the things that that you saw were like, just from your experience, that weren't working, and where you said, okay, I think I can come up with something that can help to solve these issues, or even make it much better than it currently is right now?
That's a good question. So the thing that I've seen over and over and over again is, you've got sharp people, hardworking people that start a company. They really understand, the product or service, how to sell it, and they've got a couple of people helping them, and, they're touching everything. That's fantastic. And then, the company's successful, grows a little bit. They add some people, and then all of a sudden they realize, wow, I've got, whatever it might be, 15, 30 people, and they're still behaving exactly the same way. They're still touching everything. But at this point, now they've got, whatever, 30 people all going, hey, I need you so that we can make a decision on this, and which way do we go? And, they've got such valuable expertise, but now they're the bottleneck, and they're going crazy because they're working, a billion hours a day. And so that creates stress, and eventually it stops the growth of the company. And so that situation is the fundamental one that we've kind of chosen to address with Abunden. And what we do is we build an infrastructure around that person so that they can safely delegate, hand off some of the responsibility, not all of it, but hand off appropriate parts. So now they don't have to work a billion hours a day. Their team can handle some of the tasks, and now the company can grow to the next level.
Well, I mean, I tell you, I see that often, especially in these big Fortune 500 companies where people just feel like they can't even keep their head above the water. But even in small businesses, when you get like from a small mom and pop to, a company, 100 or less, it's not like those situations are going to be any different. They just might be whatever level that they're at in that business. So I think that what you said about infrastructure, delegation are imperative for any team to grow, and leveraging strengths, offsetting weaknesses. Can we talk a little bit more about the infrastructure? Because I always feel like, think about a house, right? If you want to build and maintain a beautiful home, if it's sitting on a faulty foundation, that house is going to not be sustainable. You're going to be fixing it. You're going to be managing the problem. But man, worst case, it might fall down. Talk about that from a team perspective. So the importance of having a really sound infrastructure in place.
Absolutely. Great analogy with the house. So the foundation, we've got to know where we're going. Everybody on the team needs to know where we're going. Everybody needs to know where they fit in, what kind of decisions they can make. We have to have an organized way to make decisions. We've got to have our supervisors who are building relationships, connecting with the people so that the people do the work. I mean, if you've got a company with 50 people, man, that's a lot of horsepower. And if those people are working effectively, wow, you can do a lot of good. But if they're not, you just have a big payroll. So, those are some of the things. Obviously, you need process and training to support all that. To me, those are some of the key foundational pieces in, building your company.
When you talked about resources and training, would it be safe to say that when you can provide resources, the company is doing their part, whether let's say if they have 70 people, maybe they have an EAP provider, employee assistant provider. A lot of times people don't take advantage of those as part of their benefits package. And there's a wealth of things that can help them develop personally there. There might be some other things that these organizations can bring in training, but it's got to be that person that's got to step up, each person to take responsibility for him and hers own development, to then be a better example and be a better resource to complement the people they're working with. Can you talk about a little bit more about those resources that first create awareness, but also help to inspire people to take ownership over their development, their role, their duties, and be accountable.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, wow, you can just go on the internet and you can find training on, a ton of stuff, nearly everything. So, the technical ability to get training to improve yourself, that's not as hard as it used to be. It's out there. But the motivation and the belief that it's going to pay off is, as you've just mentioned, that's the harder part.
Yeah.
And what we find is the relationship between the direct supervisor and that individual has a huge, impact on that dynamic, on will that person choose to move themselves forward. And, one of our tools is a one-on-one system so that we train the supervisors on how to do one-on-ones in a structured, consistent way, to keep track of those, keep records, and then build the relationship. That's really the key. Listen to the employee, understand what they're going through, what are their challenges, where do they want to go? And from there, once we have a relationship and understand where they want to go with their career, then it's so much easier to motivate them to take advantage of all those resources, like you said.
Yeah, I like what you said about, again, it comes down to communication. A lot of times we think we're communicating, but are we really communicating at a high level? Are we being specific, clear, and concise? Are we relating and understanding versus responding? I like the fact that you just said something like, what's most important to you? So, granted, we want to move the business forward. So we know what's important to the business, but we can't move it forward unless we know what's important to you so that we can provide resources or put you in situations that will leverage your strengths more than your weaknesses. I love what you just said. Can you expand a little bit about talking about what the importance of why asking someone what's most important to you, not only once in a while, but more consistently can help really bring a team together?
So earlier you had the analogy of the house. To me, that relationship between the supervisor, the employee, it's like a relationship with a friend or a family member. I mean, if you don't talk to that family member except, in gradual passing, or a friend, for months on end, is it really a friendship anymore? I mean, we used to be friends, 10 years ago. So if a supervisor, if all they're doing is saying, here, do this, that's great for, assigning tasks, but there's not that, real relationship there. In order to, get feedback, especially somebody you're paying and they're depending on that paycheck, if they're worried about the chance that if they say the wrong thing, they're going to lose that paycheck, they're probably not going to say a whole lot. Yeah. So you really have to invest in talking with them and listening to them to understand what's happening in their world. Where do they want to go? What problems are they having? What challenges? And, so you then become, have level of trust and become a resource for that person. To me, that's a real key, to moving the edge.
I love what you just said, because being resourceful inspires someone to do for themselves. So maybe if they don't even have that internal motivation yet, maybe the pain of where they're at is greater where they are. They want to move ahead so they can find discipline or being consistent, even though it feels uncomfortable, to take that resource or the resources and your example, because it's worked for you, and how they can do for themselves. I'm a firm believer that's what builds a winning team. You think of sports. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to be the most talented or the most physically gifted, but it's how we think different, how we be to become, to do, and have, and that consistency and having that foundation, to me, what builds winning teams. I look at the Patriots that way when they won 6 Super Bowls. Tom Brady was not necessarily the most gifted, most physically skilled, whatever quarterback. He was drafted in the 6th round, but he'll go down as the greatest quarterback to ever play the game because he was disciplined, he was focused, he was consistent with his efforts, and he put this first. And he was a great team member, a great leader by example and resources.
Yeah, I think we've seen that over and over and over. And in sports, it's so easy to, observe it, whether you've got a Vince Lombardi or John Wooden or Bill Belichick, Phil Jackson. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yeah.
The leadership can produce extraordinary results. And, you as a leader of your company, if you invest a little bit, you can get a ton more out of your company.
I agree. What would be some other things you can share about, the importance, of implementing systems, processes? Obviously, it starts with people and development and what you talked about, that infrastructure and that constant development ongoing. What about maybe systems, processes, things like that could be technology nowadays and to help kind of connect the dots for, to make teams more efficient and productive and so on?
People ultimately are the most important thing, but people need structure. You can't just, people with too much possibilities, too many choices, too many options are just overwhelmed. And in general, they're just going to shut down, So if you provide them with systems, with structure to make their life more manageable, they can then feel like they've accomplished something. Here's your goal. Here's the system you use to get there. They can feel satisfied at the end of the day that they've been part of something bigger, that they've helped move the organization forward. They can feel good about themselves when they go home at the end of the day. So you can overdo it with procedures, you can make a bureaucracy that crushes people, or you can make procedures and systems that help people feel better about themselves, become more productive, and help you.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's so important. Again, coming back to the communication, the technology and the systems are only going to be as good as how we're using that technology and systems to communicate at a higher level. Understanding our role, our duties, and what our team agreements are to finish certain tasks or a project or whatever that may be. Talk a little bit about that and, like how that all comes together. And where concepts like Abunden, help, companies to really not have to know it all, know what they know, and then allow tools and systems like that to help bring it all together.
The first step is, saying this is where I want to go. But then the next step is saying, I don't know everything. I am willing to take, some advice. Not indiscriminately. I'm not going to just listen to what everybody says and say, oh, that's the answer, but to say, I am willing to listen to input and try something that might move us forward. Important for any type of change. And that's not easy. You've worked hard and you've learned a lot and you've got great experience. So it's, it can be a tad humbling to, even take a little advice, but
absolutely.
We see that they do. And, my perspective is, I've worked with so many companies over the last 30 plus years in this lower middle market space, and they're so different. The things that inspired them to start, the industries, even within the same industry, the specifics of different companies are, very noticeable. And so bringing in advice, bringing in a system that's flexible enough to adapt to the way you operate, the way you work. We're going to change the way you work a little bit, but we're not going to just start over and say, here's the answer, follow this absolute, this is the gospel. From my perspective, that's the way you get the best results. Let's take what's already excellent with your company, add in what's a very good system, and adapt it to what you're doing, not crush what you're doing, but adapt it to what you're doing.
No, I love that. I think that's so important. What would you say, Karl, people are listening right now live and then we got people that will listen to the show anytime, right? It could be next few days, it could be 3 months, it could be a year from now. But, what would you say would be everything you've shared so far? What would be that first step that you would recommend, with somebody that have that leadership role in their organization to say, hey, we got to do things different. We got to motivate our team, but it's got to come from within. We're not using tools. What would be that first step would work? Even if it were narrowed down to a certain business unit like sales, if we were just looking at sales in general.
It's always a learning process, what are my options? What are my choices? What are my tools? What's out there? I've learned from, very successful people, I've talked to a number of billionaires and, multi-millionaires and learn from them. What worked for you? Why did that work? How did you do it? And, try and, gain a little piece of what they've been successful with and bring it into my, habits and practices. And really, and that's where abundance really come from. It's not that we've, taken something that's proprietary, but we've taken what we've seen over and over again work. A business plan is not something revolutionary, been out there, but how do you do a business plan effectively for a company this size? How do you build an org chart effectively for a company of this size? It's going to be completely different for a Fortune 500 company or for a startup, to do these things. What's a management meeting? We're not running General Motors boardroom here. We're running, whatever, a 50-person company. And so what does that top level manager meeting look like? What do processes look like? We're generally not running nuclear facilities here. We're running, a service company or a distribution company or even a manufacturing company. So those are the types of, that's if I'm that leader of what, like you say, sales department, a small company, let's go find best practices, good ideas from, other organizations. Even if we're borrowing small pieces, that can add up.
No doubt about it. I love that. And I like to just, as we get towards the, the latter part here of the show, talk about some of the things that where, with your abundant framework, what are some of the things that you've seen companies really make a lot of changes? Again, this is a process. There's no quick fix thing. Every company is going to be a different situation and have a different experience. But for the most part, collectively, based upon what you've seen, what are some of the changes that take place and the results that are a byproduct of people committing, doing their part, using this framework?
Well, I think the single most impactful change that I see companies make, and not a massive change, but it's a regular structured management meeting. And the communication, the discussions that happen in those management meetings have been completely transformational for companies in time after time. And so many small companies are adverse to meetings, and I understand why. I've been in some terrible meetings myself. But if you can do it right and only spend, a small part of your week doing it, it can really pay off. And so that would be the one thing I would point to if I had to pick one thing.
Wow. That's great. And what are some of the, the types of organizations that you find, that really understand this? You don't have to name specific companies, but, it could be just industries that you find that are really embracing what we're talking about. We all have to change from within ourselves first, be an impact for others through our example and our resources, having a commitment from the, the top level down to make what kind of it could be industries or, types of companies that really have embraced that and are seeing a significant amount of change.
Well, I think one of the key characteristics that I see is that people, leaders that want to have an impact on people, and that could be on, helping their family, their kids. It could be on, their business partners or friends, or it could be even on their customers. I want to serve my customers better. What Abundant's really doing is helping you manage people. So service companies are really the most holistic example of that. Software companies and manufacturing companies and distribution companies all use people, but service companies are the ones that's how they deliver their product. That is their product. So service companies would be the area that, we've seen just the quickest, biggest impact on.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Well, you've shared a lot of really great information here, and we've learned, a little bit about Abundant. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that have gotten a great amount of value what you shared today, and be curious to find out more about Abundant and some of the things that might help them in their organizations, regardless of what that size is. What are some of the things you could share with the audience, just best ways they can get in contact with you and get to know you, and more importantly, you get to know them, and what are the things that you could help them with?
Right. We'd love to have discussions with, business owners, entrepreneurs at all stages. And so happy to, accept their outreach. They can certainly reach us through our website at abunden.com. They can find us on all the major social media and YouTube channels, LinkedIn. You can look for me personally on LinkedIn or Twitter, wherever you're comfortable looking. We're thrilled to talk to people, just to learn what they're up to, even if they're not the stage where we can help them. We'd love to make connections and see how we can be useful.
Wow, that's great. Well, Karl, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us and share your insights from personal experience and all the great things that you're doing with Abunden and really, launching something that, that is really making a difference in helping organizations to really become more in sync and really, come together as a team, because it really does take a team. It's like a family, right? A family can't really be effective at a higher level unless everybody is coming together, not just the dad, the mom, and the kids as well. It takes people to make things work, and understanding our role, our duties, and coming to a mutual agreement on what is going to work best moving forward. So thank you so much for being here and sharing. We encourage everybody that's listening or will be listening to reach out to Karl directly through his social media handles, his website at abunden.com, also his email. And we want to thank you again, Karl. Listeners, we want to thank you each and every week being here for Business Influencers. Again, this show is dedicated to your personal and business success. It was designed to really bring in authentic people like Karl that share from personal experience. This isn't textbook stuff, but things that actually have been tried over a period of time. So again, you get to decide what that means to you. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to share what has worked, and you getting to decide what that means to you in your business and in your personal life. Again, whether you're running a corporation or involved in the leadership role there, or you're a one-man, one-woman show, it does not matter. All of these things can help benefit you and where you're going. So until then, everybody, we want to wish everybody a great rest of your week, and we'll be back next week. Have a great day, everyone.